welcome online Chair of the Amarama Airfield Limited Board, Clive Geddes. Welcome, Clive. Good to see you again. Got a chance to catch up with you on Saturday at the Amarama Community Conversation, and it was good to see you there. So anyway, we'll basically hand over to you to introduce your report and go from there.
Good morning, Your Worship, councillors, members of the executive. Firstly, my apologies for not being able to attend in person. I was previously committed to a workshop on spatial planning here in Queenstown this afternoon. So I'm sorry that I'm not able to be there. The report is a relatively simple report for a relatively simple small company. And it would be fair to say that in the year ending 30th of June 2023, we have managed to get the company through a difficult trading period, excuse me, in a position that enables us to go forward. That has resulted in a significant reduction in our cash reserves, but we are confident that the year to come and the conclusion of the Nimbus Drive subdivision will restore those to a very, very comfortable level. I was very pleased to be able to join that workshop on Saturday, Your Worship, and I was interested that in the discussion that I heard and the comments that were made, it was of interest to me that the airfield was not mentioned once. And that tells me that it must be regarded by the local community a bit like the pub. It's been there for a long time, and it just continues to operate, and it's just part of Amarama. And to us, that's very satisfying. We're very conscious that in the last 2 months, excuse me, our previous tow operator ceased operation, and we have had to move from microlight, relatively low profile, low noise microlight towing back to a relatively noisy piston powered aircraft. We're very conscious of that change for the community, and later in the past weekend, we spent some time with the tow operator and the aircraft owner going through a range of tow patterns that will minimise the impact of that aircraft on the community. I'm very happy to take any questions that relate either directly to the financial statements or to the reports that accompany them.
Okay, thank you very much. So councillors, if we just focus on the report initially, at least, is there any questions or comments? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Clive, for the report. It's great to see that you had a notable, well, reasonable increase in turnover or revenue in the year. I suppose you would be, or is it fair to ask if you're frustrated when I look at the expenses? Basically, you've been lumbered with, well, you've made $7,000 or $8,000 more, but the expenses effectively come to 20,000 more. And there's just little increases all along the way with power and auditing and so on, depreciation and the like. But it looks as though those things are kind of really, well, they're not holding you back, but they are an impediment.
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. That is correct. Of the 20,000 increased expenditure, 10,000 of it is in the accounting and bookkeeping and audit lines. And that cost has risen from 19,000 in 2022 to something like 28,000 in the current year. And that is a matter which we have opened a discussion with Council on, and we would look forward to progressing that. The balance of that $21,000 increase in costs falls largely into increases in operating costs that were required by We started with a wonderful wet spring, and then we went into a long, hot, dry summer, which pushed up our employment costs and our electricity costs in relation to the operation of the irrigation system. So those we would regard as being seasonal increases. And if we get a reasonably even rainfall pattern across the coming year, we'd expect those costs to drop, except, of course, their unit prices continue to increase.
Thank you. You had an indication of what audit costs will be for this current year, I believe. But yeah, what's that looking like?
Excuse me. The estimate that we were given by Nexia on behalf of the Office of the Auditor General was for the 9,700 for the current year, 12,500 for the past year, sorry, 12,500 for this current year, and 16,000 for the year to follow. We don't believe any of those costs are sustainable, and they are the accounting and bookkeeping cost is higher than it really need be for a company of this size because of the audit requirement. So we would look forward to opening a discussion with council as to how we may be able to mitigate those ever-rising costs.
Yeah, no, it's a bit ridiculous when your audit costs are around about 10% of your overall expenses, and that's in a year where you've been spending a bit more than usual. So yes. It's yeah, quite astounding. Councillors, any other questions? Councillor Hopkins again?
Well, just supplementary to that, Clive, I presume that some of those accounting and audit costs arise out of the airfield being a CCO. And I'm imagining when you say that you want to have a conversation with us, that perhaps the directors envisage a change in the status of the port that might see it no longer being a CCO. Is that a correct assumption?
Yes, the audit and accounting cost is a direct requirement of the Local Government Act. And I'm fully aware that it's not just the Marama Airfield that are suffering this burden, council itself is. And we think that if you look at the structure of the company, it is each shareholder holds exactly 50%, and each shareholder has 2 directors. So in essence, there is no control by either shareholder. It is very much a company that works on a consensus basis. And we think that there are a number of options that council may wish to look at, including determining whether any material loss in the Marama airfield, any loss in the Marama airfield due to malfeasance is actually material to council or not. If there is, firstly. Secondly, is there any ability to have a release from the council-controlled organisation status through the Local Government Act and then to the Office of the Auditor General? And last, and probably the least likely, is the consideration of a shareholding change that would release the company from being a council-controlled organisation, but would retain the status of council in the decision-making process.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Any questions? Any broader questions at all? Probably just good to get an update on your subdivision that the airfield is doing, Clive. So I got a chance on Saturday to drive around and have a look. So some work has started, and yeah, have you got any indication of interest yet from potential buyers?
Yes, we have. We've got very strong interest from both all to date, Your Worship, from people who are not glider pilots. So
right.
That is comforting in a way, because it releases us from this endless request from glider pilots is there a deal for us? Well, the answer is, of course, if there's a deal for you as a glider pilot, then there's a deal for Joe Bloggs, who lives in Marama, as a ratepayer. So yes, the strong interest, we've been advised as recently as Sunday. The project is 3 weeks behind schedule because on excavation it was found that the wastewater drainage main was on a flatter profile than the as-built showed, and we needed to go back to Council's Three Waters Department and have a new design consented. And I would like to pass on to you the comments from our project managers, Terramark, that they were very, very grateful for the speedy way that Council's Three Waters Department dealt with this request, in the full knowledge that there was a live contract that was stalled until this consent was issued. So we really appreciate that support, and we also appreciate the ongoing support of Council for that project.
Yeah, no, that's good. Good to hear. Good feedback. Thank you very much. And yeah, you make sure those glider pilots are all paying market rate. That's
And more.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Okay, would someone like to move the recommendations on attached to the report? Councillor Blackler and Councillor Holding. Any further discussion? Councillor Hopkins.
Just basically, I thank Clive for that summary of the alternatives that would get you out of those unnecessary and pretty exorbitant costs. And I really just want to signal that I think the sooner we resolve the matter in one of those three ways that Clive's proposed, the better. So I don't know how we can timetable that, but I would have thought that opting for one of those three choices would be a relatively simple process that we could do quite quickly, perhaps as part of the LTP.
Yeah, slightly, not quickly, but yeah, there's the process to go through if we're to go down that particular path. So there'll be a discussion for another point in time. I'll now put it that we receive the annual report, etc. So those in favour, please say aye. Aye. And against, that's carried. Thanks again, Clive, for joining us. All the best with Queenstown spatial planning. I don't think you've got any space left anyway, so not sure what you're going to do with that one, but hope it goes well.
It's like boxing the wind, Your Honour.
Indeed.
Your worship,
thank you very much.
Thank
you very much, Clive.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Right, we've got Waitaki Contracting next. I'm not sure if they are here. It's good to know. So if we go back to page 40, to Waitaki Contracting Limited's annual report, and just welcome them in. So it'd be quite good if officers see that anyone waiting there that's on next, so we're more than welcome to come inside and into the chamber. Anyway, welcome to Waitaki Contracting. So CEO, CFO, and Director George Culture. So when you're ready, we'll just hand over you to introduce your report. So welcome Paul and Tony as well.
Thank you, Gary. I'm presenting today on behalf of Steve Grave, who's not available, he's our chair. So you will have read the report, so I'll cover some of the key points here. Revenue levels were positive at 27 million versus last year at 21.6, so it was quite an achievement. Profit achieved was 618,000 pre-tax compared to last year's 550. Waitaki Contracting Limited experienced high costs associated with onboarding of staff for the road maintenance and other contracts. And as a result, recruitment and training costs were well up on previous years. That's what happens at the start. Staff numbers increased from 91 to 124 full-time employees during this period. The civil construction industry as a whole has experienced increasing costs of over 26%. Waitaki Contracting was not immune to this and experienced cost increases of over 30% in some areas. most of which had to be absorbed as were unable to be passed on to the clients. Whitestone Contracting Limited carried plant and people in the early part of the financial year in anticipation and preparation to securing the Waitaki Road maintenance contract. This came at a cost. However, this provided for a smooth transition to the contract with a shortened establishment period. It's fair to say some contracts did not perform to expectation. Labour shortage, cost escalations played a big part in this. Learnings have been taken forward to aid with continual improvements within the business. The company invested significantly in plant, spending $3.4 million. A significant amount of this was deployed on the Waitaki Road maintenance contract. The early risers here may have seen our new state-of-the-art street sweeper doing an excellent job around the streets of Oamaru. I'm very pleased to advise the company's got off to a very positive start for this year and is $600K ahead of the same time last year. Whitestone Contracting's intention is to achieve a minimum of 8% return on shareholder funds. Having full workbooks with a steady stream of work for the rest of the financial year and to build on a solid start will be critical to achieving their shareholders' expected returns on investment. Whitestone Contracting Limited continued to give back to the community in a number of ways, supporting local sports through our ground sponsorship of the North Otago Rugby Union and assisting a number of sporting organisations. They supported the arts in getting behind the Opera House and Waitaki Arts Festival. Other initiatives included the Waitaki Student Support Trust, gifting swimming lessons at the Aquatic Centre, and running a staff promotion in support of the breast cancer appeal. Whitestone Contracting is increasing capability in our community by increasing the skill and qualification of our people by investing in our people. Training qualifications are depicted on page 11 of our report. We're committed to training our people and supporting our community in this way. Whitestone Contracting released a dividend of $225,531 for the shareholder to use for the benefit of the community. The company also gave $71,335 back to the community in the way of sponsorships. This brings the total Whitestone Contracting Limited having given back to the Waitaki community through dividend sponsorship to over $5 million in the last 10 years. Whitestone Contracting also supported the local community by spending in excess of $4 million in the local economy with local businesses. This is on top of the approximate $6 million in wages and salaries paid to staff based in Waitaki. So there's $10 million a year back into the community. The company has maintained a positive health and safety record with no lost time injuries or medical treatment injuries for the period, which is a great achievement by the team. And in today's world, that's quite exceptional. So congratulations to the management and the wider team on achieving that. Thank you, Your Honour.
Thank you very much, George. Paul, do you want to add anything?
Oh no, look, I think it's really pleasing last year with their health and safety. Having 0 LTIs and MTIs has been fantastic. I know our profit is not where we want it to be, but it's improving. So yeah, it's looking positive.
Okay, councillors, any questions? Councillor Blackfire.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could talk to the increase in the total recordable injury rate and what that's showing us.
So our total injury rate by memory from last year was about 5.6, 5.9 roughly. This year we're running at 0. So with the from the previous year, the year before that, so in 2022, 2021, it was about 5.9. And the last one, 22, 23 was 0. So that's worked on your total number of incidents, your MTIs, LTIs over your total work hours per $100,000, 200,000 labour hours. You need a mathematical degree to figure it all out, but that's what they're doing.
I just see on page 50, where is it here? Page 54 of the report. I see 2023 we've got 0. So we had 6 and 22 down to 23. So do we think that that huge increase in 22 was more around a behaviour shift in that actual reporting and culture around safety, as opposed to a big increase from 21 to 22 and then down to 0, or is that a genuine increase?
So just notice page 54 on the agenda, but page 9 in your report.
I guess in the last couple of years, we have had a real focus on probably a shift in our culture, but it's more of a continuance of what we've done in the past. The 21-22 year, we did have a number of injuries over 1 month, which didn't help. So 22 wasn't a great year for injuries, but 23 was an exceptional year for. I feel like we spent a year on our culture, and we really got somewhere with our health and safety culture out in the field. We've still got a lot of work to do. Like we're not being complacent because we're still seeing a lot of incidents out there, just not injury incidents. Our reporting numbers are very high, so I see that as a really good thing, because the team are reporting even the smallest of incidents. So we get a lot of data through that. But it's really it's a continuum. You can't be relaxed with health and safety. You just need to keep at it. So really pleasing we got the year with no injuries, and this year we're tracking all right too. But we just need to keep at it.
I think as a culture across a lot of companies, so there's a high emphasis on health and safety, and certainly on reporting incidents. It's a pyramid thing, and that is what's happening. A higher number of incidents reported, which is a good thing, to the degree that everything's coming forward, and we hopefully prevent that peak at the top.
Councillor Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Look, yeah, I guess my question is, well, there's one very small question towards the end. There's a reference to a property in Waitaki. I think it's $300,000. Some talk about on page 89, I think, of or 94. I'm not sure which it is now. I need to check, but there's a reference to a deal being done or about to be concluded this year, and I was just wondering if that related specifically to all the remaining land and building assets you had in Waitaki. But more fundamentally, on page 47, you say that you had to spend, or you've spent 3.4 million predominantly to resource the contract. You've made 8,076,000 from us this year, compared with 2,147,000 the year before. The return to us is actually less than it was in the COVID year. Was the contract actually worth getting? I would have thought arguably it's actually ultimately put the company in a slightly worse position relative to its ambition to return an 8% on shareholders' opening funds.
I think just important to differentiate what they've made versus what they've received. They've received that much from council. They haven't made that much from council. It's not all profit.
But I accept that.
We'll hand over to George to respond to that.
Could you just refer to which page it is in the report, please, rather than your papers?
So
your page 2 talks about the $3.4 million investment. There's later references. Just bear with me. I'm sorry. I'll have to.
Can you?
Sorry.
The $3.4 million investment. So on average, we spend about $2 million a year on capital replacement plant. So that's just business as usual, replacing worn out gear. The road maintenance contract attracted around about 1.4 million of additional plant on that, and so like the sweeper truck, which is on the front page. So we didn't spend 3.4 million of capital on that one contract. The first year of the contract, hopefully it's a 7-year contract. It's a 5-year plus one or two, hopefully maybe more. It's very difficult in my lifetime with maintenance contracts to show a profit in the first year, and we've actually done that in this contract, which is really pleasing. A very small profit. So in terms of, is it worth having? Absolutely it is. As far as the company's performance goes, it gives us regular revenue every month, which is a really stabilizer for our business. So, that's it. That's it.
Well, okay, the difficulty is year after year after year, you guys say, we want to give you 8% return on the open shareholders funds. And then year after year, you say, oh, it's been a very difficult year, we can't do it. This year, the return 3.72% is actually worse than it was in the COVID year. And yet you've got this substantial new contract with WDC. And we can presumably, if you look at the value of the company, we can presumably right now get more if that money was in the bank. So, I mean, the question is, do you actually think there's going to be a point at which you will be able to deliver 8% return on shareholders' opening funds?
If you look at page 15 on the reports, there's pretty one with the graphs on it, like the little bar graphs on it, like that, Jim, on our reports 15. Right. So you can see back to 2019, we returned 13.6%.
Yes.
And COVID obviously hit in 2020, late in the financial year, and we went down to 7.5%, and the 2021 year was 1.27%. Granted, 2022 showed 3.88%. Last year was 3.72%. And as George pointed out in his report, with the maintenance contract and with recruitment and all the other work going on, we spent a lot of money on people, training people, onboarding people. Our budget was about 200,000. We spent over 400,000. So I mean, without those sorts of costs and ramping up, then I would have expected a better result. But at the end of the day, is 8% achievable? I think it is. It's something we strive for all the time. Is it worth having your money in the bank? That's something for you people to decide and not me, really. So yeah.
Just possibly to add to that, for many years, Whitestone had a considerable amount of contracts here, in fact, most of them, and they did quite well. Then it changed for various reasons, and the contracts went elsewhere. And Whitestone spent a lot of time running around the country, filling in their workbook with other jobs in some quite difficult places, right down through to Milford. It is much easier to work close to home, especially in today's staff work-life balance for people. And the more work that we can get close to home, the better the company will be off. So this is one thing that we're working quite hard on, is to liaise with council and other contracts that are available within the district and not too much further away, because they're easy to run, more profitable, and much easier to keep staff happy. And this is part of the deal in today's world, is this work-life balance. Thank you.
Just in reference to your comments, Paul, you mentioned, it's very difficult to make a profit on a new contract in the first year. So this will be your second year with the contract. You did make a small profit, so that's great. Do you expect that that's going to contribute to a better result in the current year we're in?
Good job. I hope so, Gary. There's some moving to a collaborative style contract is one of the parts of the contract we won, and I think there's might be some teething problems heading to that, and some challenges there for us. It's always the goal is to return that 8%. So I'd like to think that things improve. The last few months have been tough on the contract, so hopefully, and everyone's got budget issues, right? So certainly a goal, but yeah, it's going to be a challenge. Yeah, and I think that it comes from a lot of it'll be helped by more working together, I think, between council and contracting staff.
Yeah. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Halalele.
Thank you, and through the chair, thank you for your report. I'm just looking at page 55 on your report. That would be, yes, it's on, oh, sorry, page 10 on your report, 55 on ours. I noticed that you invest quite heavily in your training expenditure. with your staff almost double compared to last year, which I actually appreciate because it tells me that you're building capability and skills and qualifications within your workforce to be able to better perform with the contracts that you have. So are you able to just kind of share what are your common qualifications, like and where things are sitting at? Are they 1 to 3 year type? Like in terms of the length to complete? It just gives an indication in terms of what the needs are for our community when we're looking at workforce development to help, to help support you with sustainability and providing the right support, wraparound support with workforce training and industry. And that might indicate, like in terms of the performance levels of some of the contracts that you have waiting for them to qualify before they can peak as well. So I'm just noticing some of those patterns there. If you're able to elaborate a bit more, please.
Thanks for the question. So the main cost of that, if you look at the next line down under that 400,000, the FTEs have increased. So a lot of that was just retraining, onboarding people, inductions, competencies, driver's licenses. A lot of it, we get a lot of people with just a class 1, and for us to have someone with a class 2 or a heavy vehicle license is important. And they're expensive, they're $1,700 or so just to get through it. So a lot of the basic training is around, for us, is traffic management, wheels, tracks, rollers, heavy vehicles, and then you get into your things like your Connexus qualifications, which is on the next page over. You can see there we've got the level 2, 3s, and 4s. So that's your water treatment, water reticulation, the foreman courses and all those civil works courses. So some of those are sort of 2 to 3 year courses, particularly the level 3 and level 4. So you usually start on the level 2 and then work your way through to level 4 through the Connexus program. So we haven't got anyone in the civil trades program yet. We have just taken on an apprentice for the workshop, which will be valuable. So yeah. And we still have apprenticeships with the landscaping side of it as well. In Queenstown, we've got some people going through that. So.
Okay, any further questions, Councillor Hopkins?
Look, I did mention at the start that I had a question about the property sale in Waimati, and it's on your page 38. It says you sold bare land in Home Street for $143.29, and then you go on to say there's a balance showing of 312. The remainder of land and buildings in Waimati, a contract for sale is in place. Is that for the whole 312,000?
I can't really get into the details of that, the sale of that. But all I can say is that the property in Waimati, that was the whole property was for sale, or just the one?
So one property, we had 2 properties there. One was sold, and the other one was under that agreement for the 312. Yeah.
Okay. That is Councillor Blackler. Yeah.
Just with respect to the desire to improve the performance of Whitestone in terms of the annual operating surplus, I'm just wondering, with the existing holding of plant and equipment, what is the utilisation across the equipment that we have, and is it just a case of having better utilisation of that, or is there a specific strategy that you're seeking to undertake to generate an improvement in that space?
Thanks for the question. Plant utilisation is something that we monitor monthly, and we review every quarter. We shift a bit of gear around different areas of the business where it's going to get used the most, for example. So if we buy a new bit of kit, it needs high utilisation, and it will get shifted around. So it is a focus point of us for us, and we do. We're still retrenching some of the older gear that we've had from the outer areas where we've lost contracts, like in Waimati and in Mackenzie. And we can see now that that gear is not getting used, so we're either deploying it somewhere else in the business where it will get used or will get sold. So gear sitting around in the yard doesn't make us money. So Yeah, so no, it certainly is a focus point. There is a clear strategy there to improve that. So we have got a workshop manager / fleet manager whose focus is on plant utilisation, and it's reviewed monthly, like I said. And we have a real clear review of it every quarter. So
there's capacity within the current holding to increase utilisation going forward.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
It's interesting in the tendering world because you don't know what your workload is some months ahead. Currently, Whitestone have tenders out now for waiting for acceptance, and you need to be ready to go quite quickly. So you can't be down to the bare bones. You've got to have enough gear to be able to fulfil what you tender for during the tender period each year. And sometimes you win, sometimes you lose.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone willing to move the recommendation, receive the report? Deputy Mayor Halalele and Councillor McCone, thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, look, thanks. I'm sorry to ask the questions I do, but and I take Mr. Kelch's point about the staff and their well-being and so forth. But there are a number of reasons why the council owns the company, and one of them is that it delivers a better return than, shall we say, that amount of money sitting in the bank. And I focus on that return on opening shareholders' funds because it is a test that reflects the ability of the country to deliver some well-being to ratepayers and residents, who are, after all, the ultimate owners of the and beneficiaries of the company's income generation. And I just think at some point we're probably going to have to. I don't want to do it today, but I noticed that yes, 2019 was a great year. On your page 15, 13.6 return, 7.5 in 2020. I think 2019 was an outlier because my recollection is that earlier years have been lower than that. But I do think at some point we have to perhaps try and negotiate with you a date by which that 8% return on shareholders' funds, in your view, will be achieved. Because I think it is important for residents to get the benefit that that owning the asset is supposed to deliver.
Okay, go ahead to Mr. Parmley.
Right. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind that, we sent a letter of expectation preceding this financial year, where our expectation was set out as a 3-year timeframe to get to that 8%. And yeah, that was in discussion, with the company board. So obviously, it's a company that's going through a lot of change. This is the first year of those 3 years that we're looking at in terms of reaching that 8%.
I think it reminded.
I just also like to comment on that. We'd look forward to negotiations, Jim, because there's a wide range of methods to get there. And I'm sure that they'd be beneficial to both parties and the ratepayer. The other side of having your own contracting company does mean that it's local. It is here. You're not held to ransom by what has been now known as the big boys in the industry. There's your Fulton Hogans, your Downers and your Hebs. At least you've got some insurance that if you didn't have Whitestone, you're at the mercy of everybody else. And I've been in the industry a long time too, and you can see what happens when you haven't got an alternative. The positive ones are Cyclone, now Cord, and some others that are working extremely well with still only a council rate. And I think there's some room to follow some of their methodology and look at the picture of how well they do and how they get there. And I think it'll be beneficial for our whole district. And I'm personally very supportive of our district, and I want to see it go ahead.
Thank you very much. And with that, I'll put the motion. Those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And against? That's carried. Thank you all for joining us today. And just all the best for the current year we're in. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, it's a challenging environment. I know you are working on how Whitestone can deliver better. So we look forward to seeing that come to fruition. Thank you. Right, now we've got Tourism Waitaki Limited. Their reports on page 137 in the agenda. So welcome Chair of the Board, Mike McElhinney, I've got Megan Crawford, one of the directors, and we've got Philip Agnew, general manager. So I just, I'll invite you to introduce your report. I'm sorry, I need to duck out for a wee minute, but I'll leave Hannah to run things momentarily. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary, Your Worship. Firstly, look, thank you. The directors we're pleased to present the report. It's been after a few challenging years in the tourism industry. It's good to have everything up and running again, and the board is open and travel is coming back, and the district has been doing rather well. I take it that you've had a chance to read the report, but before we move on, I'd just like to pass over to Dr. Philippa, please.
I just wanted to address just quickly the Waitaki District Council operating grant. I think most of you probably noticed, and it might have been Jim Hopkins's first question, perhaps. That this year it says that we received 433,000 from the District Council as a service grant. I want to make sure that you understand what's happened here, and it won't be really obvious. So back in November 2019, we started invoicing the council on a monthly basis for the service grant. But in our funding agreement, it was written that we should be invoicing for payment for the 20th of the following month. But at that point in 2019, the invoice were dated the first of the month, and they were paid within the same month. So the auditors have picked up on that and recorded that as an error, and they've fixed it within the current financial year. But they deemed that it wasn't material enough for them to go back and fix in previous years. So while it looks as though this year has been higher, it's because the payment that came to us on the 20th of July, that we dated 1 July, was accrued back to June 2023. So that payment, while it came to us this financial year, has gone back to the previous year. So that's why that financial year that we're looking at is 33,000 higher than it should have been. It doesn't mean we got more money than we did. It's just a date issue. Okay. So I just wanted to make that really clear from the start, because looking at this, it looks like we received more money than our funding agreement, but we didn't, I can just assure you. But yeah, we're happy to take questions of anything else.
Thank you for that. Any questions? Of course.
Actually, that wasn't going to be one of the questions I was going to ask, to be perfectly honest. I figured it was some weird and strange perverse thing like that. I do have a couple of other questions. On page 144 of our report, page 3 of yours, you talk about 2 new full-time roles that are going to be added, and I'm just curious to know what they are. On page 154 of our report and page 13 of yours, yeah, no, I just note the very heartening increase in revenue from 383 to 1319. And then on page 67, sorry, 167 of ours, and page 26 of yours, there's a reference on the tax thing to plus less tax effect of temporary differences not previously recognised, showing 76 in brackets. So if you could explain that, please. And on page 177 of our agenda and 36 of yours, can you just tell us a bit more about these long-term borrowings? I was slightly surprised to see that figure as well as 448. So those were my questions.
Maybe just one at a time, Councillor Hopkins. Yeah. So what page are we starting on again?
Page 144.
Okay, 144.
Two employees. Two new staff.
So those 2 full-time roles are marketing support. So we've taken on a consumer and trade marketing manager for the RTO, So that's Chrissy Griggs. I think some of you met her last week. So she is going to be pushing marketing for the district, when she's already doing a fantastic job of. And the second full-time role is an operations manager at the Penguin Colony. That's also to help support me, because obviously I have various other existing roles and more. So that's just to support operating the Penguin Colony. The second question, which I've forgotten already. Sorry,
borrowings. Yes.
Oh, the long-term, that was.
No, page 167, you've got a page, 30.
Oh, yeah,
Third 26 of yours is a reference to tax expense of 28% plus less tax effect of temporary differences not previously recognised, and then in brackets 76 as against 6. I was just wondering if you could explain it, give us a bit more detail about that, please.
I actually don't know.
No, Jim, I'd have to go back to the auditor for that one, I'm afraid.
That's
Yep.
something that would come, Deloitte, our accountant, would be able to answer that, because they've been dealing with all our tax. But yeah, sorry, I can't answer that because I'm not actually sure.
Okay.
And your last question about the long-term borrowings. So we, through COVID, received this strategic asset funding from MB to keep the Penguin Colony going, and that was in 2 separate sums. The first sum was a grant, and that was to help us continue the business through the loss of income. The second part of that sum was a loan, so that's what the 448,000 was. That part of that MB funding, and we repaid that in June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, we'll look for a mover for the recommendation. Oh, question? Yeah.
Sorry, just a quick comment. Have you considered opportunities around health tourism and what that could potentially bring to the community around community wellbeing, health, social benefits? Is that something that you're considered?
To be perfectly honest, no, not at this stage, no.
The reason why I'm asking is we had a delegate from South Seas Healthcare Trust visit our district last week, and they're the largest Pacific provider in health and wellbeing social services in the country. That was something that they had raised, so it could be something that that could be interesting to explore. So I was just wondering if you had any thoughts around that. There's an interface with a hospital, medical staff, workforce development, sustainability, all of that. So I'm just interested if you've thought of that before.
Look, that's very, very helpful to know, as we're pretty much in a rebuilding phase at the moment as well. As you can see, with having Chrissy on board and then Laurie coming back into the Penguin Colony to provide some support around for Dr. Philippa, who's been running the ship all by herself to this particular point. So yeah, no, so with the new plans going forward, thank you. We'll take that on board.
I think, yeah, we've got the destination management plan. I'm not sure that it's mentioned in there, to be fair, because it probably wasn't foreseen to be an opportunity. But I believe mainly it's up to the hospital, whoever, to develop a product of some sort that can then be potentially come onto your radar, as opposed to, it's not going to be Tourism Waitaki that creates the product. It needs to be whoever's involved in that sector.
Yeah,
But yeah, definitely good potential.
Yeah, no, definitely through the chair, like just around health retreats, utilising Geopark. So it's all of that kind of interface that and then what Mayor Gary Kirchner talked about is around the medical, clinical, that kind of support as well, that the hospital could help lead in. So just something to kind of put out there for you to consider and for you to be involved in. They're coming back in a few weeks, so I might do a meet and greet.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to this on that, there is a lot of Tourism New Zealand are looking specifically around groups that are coming into New Zealand now, focusing on longer stays, but more environmentally based. So the ability to stop and to slow down. So that fits into the wellbeing, and obviously the Waitaki is a perfect region for us to be focusing on visitors that are able to do that.
Thank you. With that, are you happy to move? Receive the report, Anna? Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Ryan, thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Hopkins?
Yeah, well, look, I just, thank you, Philip, thank you, Mike, thank you, everyone. It's really heartening to see that your revenue's up to 1.3 mil, albeit that penguin colony numbers are still only 44% of what they were pre-COVID. So hats off to you guys for A, the savings, B, the income generation. And I note, just picking up on Hannah's point, that you're on page 39 of your report, you've got those two lovely graphs showing the monthly spend in Waitaki by international visitors and domestic visitors. And in April, the international visitors gave us basically 2 million. And in the same month this year, domestic visitors gave us 10 million. So quite clearly there's a lot of mileage, I think, in focusing as much, if not more, on domestic visitors than there is on international as we rebuild. But it's really heartening to see how things have picked up now that the lockdowns are over.
Thank you. Right, sorry, just check where I'm at. Right, so those in favour of the motion, please say aye. And against, as carried. Thank you again to all of you for coming in today. Good to see you again, and all the best for the year ahead.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. With that, we have finished the agenda. So thank you very much, everyone, for the participation, including those who may have been watching the live stream online. So I'll declare the meeting officially closed.